Question orale, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
L'inflation qui accède.
Inflation continues to rise. It shows that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost after 8 years in office. Inflation is higher here in Canada than it is in the United States and in Japan. All prices are going up for all products. This Prime Minister said that inflation would go down. Rising inflation is the result of inflationary deficits that the government has created. Now, that money is in the economy, driving up prices. There's even music playing in the background, showing us that it's the end of the world, Mr. Speaker. So here's my question. When will he finally balance the books to bring down inflation and interest rates? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know full well that Canadians are experiencing tough times. That's why we're here for them, here to help them. We have brought down daycare costs. We are helping as well with the grocery rebate, which was paid out this summer. These are investments in helping Canadians. That's maybe what the Conservatives would like to slash, but we will continue to be here for Canadians, all while managing our finances responsibly. We have the lowest debt-to-GDP rate in the G7. We will continue to help Canadians and continue to grow the economy. The Honourable Opposition Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has printed money and doubled our national debt. He is causing inflation and then denying it. I warned him about this 3 years ago, and I warned him 5 months ago that inflationary deficits would cause the problems we're experiencing today. Even the Finance Minister said that deficits put oil on the fire of inflation. And then right after that, she added 60 billion of oil to that inflation. So when will they balance the books to bring down inflation? The Honourable Prime Minister. What the Leader of the Opposition seems to be saying is that he wouldn't have paid the grocery rebate to 11 million Canadians. He's saying that he wouldn't have invested in dental care for Canadians living with low and modest incomes. He wouldn't have helped children with dental care, and he wouldn't have cut daycare costs in half. He's saying that he wouldn't have been there for Canadians to help them get through tough times. But us, Mr. Speaker, we are there for Canadians, all while managing the deficit and public finances responsibly. We want to bring inflation down, yes? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Today's accelerating inflation rate proves that after 8 years, this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. After he and his ministers pumped their fists in the air and declared victory over inflation, it has now gone up 43% in 2 months. Through all categories, it's higher than here in Canada than it is in the United States and Japan. And worse, it may force the Bank of Canada to raise interest rates again, causing Canadian households who are the most indebted in the G7 to go bankrupt. Will he balance the budget to bring down inflation and rates before that nightmare unfolds?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Over the past year, we've demonstrated that we were able to bring down inflation from the highs of 8.1%, while at the same time being there to invest in Canadians. What the Leader of the Opposition is saying is he wouldn't have been there to help 11 million Canadians with the grocery rebate. He wouldn't have been there to help Canadians with dental care for kids whose families can't send them to the dentist. He certainly wouldn't have been there to cut childcare fees in half right across the country on the way to $10 a day. Those are measures, Mr. Speaker, that have helped Canadians while maintaining fiscal responsibility and seeing inflation.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Doubling the debt on Canadians is not fiscal responsibility, and forcing Canadians to live in tents is not compassion, Mr. Speaker. That is the reality. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, life is miserable, especially for the poorest among us. And his solution is to make everything cost even more. Inflation is now accelerating. He hasn't brought it down. He stacked 4% inflation on top of the previous 8% inflation, which means that Canadians can't eat, heat, or house themselves. Will he reverse his disastrous policy so Canadians can pay their bills?
Honorable Prime Minister.
While the leader of the opposition continues to talk down Canadians and talk down the Canadian economy and say that everything is broken, we're getting to work helping Canadians through this difficult time. We're eliminating GST on construction and new apartment buildings to make sure that people can get rents, and we're encouraging all provinces to do the same. A number of provinces have stepped up, which is going to make housing more accessible for millions of Canadians. We're also moving forward on extending the repayment deadline for CBA loans to help small businesses, and we're working directly with grocery chains to stabilize food prices.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
One of the ways that this Prime Minister doubled housing costs was by flooding the economy with $600 billion of newly created cash, which bid up the price of homes, forced Canadians to overpay, and then many bought at rock-bottom low rates because he promised that they would never go up. His inflationary deficits pushed them up, and now 1/5 of all Canadians are actually unable to pay the interest on their mortgages. Their mortgages are growing in size. When they renew, it will be at a bigger principal at a higher rate. Yep. How many Canadians will go bankrupt, and will we have a mortgage crisis when that happens? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we know Canadians are struggling right now. I heard from a mom from Oakville who actually said that her mortgage costs went up the same amount as her childcare costs came down. Thank God they canceled each other out, but people should be doing better than that. That's why we're going to be able to continue to be there for Canadians.
Okay. Are we ready to continue? Order. Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, every now and then the Conservatives show their true colors and react over the top, not just with rhetoric, but in attacks on things like childcare that we know they disagree with. We know they don't believe in making childcare more affordable, and every now and then they show it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, in the middle of the housing crisis, $900 million earmarked for housing in Quebec is being held hostage in Ottawa's coffers. And why? Because this Prime Minister is telling us, if I can't impose conditions, then you won't get any money. Mr. Speaker, there's only one question that the Prime Minister should be asking Quebec, which is, to which bank account should I transfer the funds? That's it. It's simple. We're in a crisis, and the Prime Minister is delaying $900 million worth of housing starts. So I make an appeal to his sense of duty and responsibility. Will he finally release the money? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, of course, we know that we all have a responsibility in dealing with the housing crisis. The federal government has a role. The provinces and municipalities also have important roles to play. We have a $400 billion plan to encourage municipalities to accelerate housing starts across the country. And currently, we are working with the government of Quebec in order to ensure that we can get that money to municipalities in the best way, in the most effective way to get housing built across the country. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, it's very hard to understand why this hasn't already been fixed. Because apart from Quebecers who are struggling to find housing, nobody, and I mean nobody, needs good news on housing as much as this Prime Minister does. Everyone would benefit from good news on housing, starting with him. He has $900 million worth of good news in between his hands, and yet he's the one who is delaying things. So, Mr. Speaker, what is he waiting for to get the money out the door and finally give some good news to Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Indeed, Mr. Speaker. We look forward to giving the $900 million to municipalities across Quebec, but you know as well as I do, Mr. Speaker, that we need to work with the government of Quebec to ensure that this money is paid out in the right way, in the appropriate way to municipalities. So we are working in good faith, but I can tell you that this $900 million is there for Quebec's municipalities, and we are very excited to send it to them.
For Burnaby South.
Canadians have been struggling with food prices for almost 2 years now, and here's the classic Liberal response. They asked the CEOs of the big grocery stores to come to Ottawa to nicely ask them to stabilize the prices, not to bring them down, to stabilize them. All the while, they don't want you to know that they met with the grocery lobbyists over 57 times in the past 2 years. They had 57 opportunities to ask the government to lower the prices, but they didn't. So why should Canadians trust this could have, should have Prime Minister now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Industry convened the heads of the five great grocery chains across this country to talk about how we were going to stabilize grocery prices, how they were going to make life more affordable for Canadians. We are there to work with them to make sure that it happens in ways that continues to support our hardworking farmers and food producers across the country and continues to put high-quality, affordable food on Canadians' tables from coast to coast to coast. We've said clearly that we expect to see a concrete plan from those grocery CEOs, and if they don't come forward with strong enough measures, then we will take measures, Mr. Speaker, but we're going to stabilize.
The Honourable Member, l'Honorable Député de Burnaby.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Shocking allegation that a Canadian citizen was killed on Canadian soil by a foreign government has rocked our country. People fleeing violence and persecution have always thought of Canada as a safe place, but now that sense of safety and security has been rocked. People are afraid for their lives. So my question to the Prime Minister, for people that have received credible threats of active credible threats of violence to their lives here in Canada, what is the plan to provide them with protection so they can be safe in Canada?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, millions of Canadians can trace their roots and origins to different countries in the world, some of which do not hold by the same values and rules that we do. And it's important for everyone to feel safe in Canada. That's why keeping Canadians safe is one of our absolute top priorities, why we continue to work closely with security agencies and partners and allies around the world to ensure that the rule of law is respected and citizens are kept safe. We know there is much more work to do. We will continue to stand strong for the rule of law, continue to keep Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
The NDP leader just now asked why we should trust this Prime Minister. Why does he continue to trust this Prime Minister and prop him up over and over again? The Liberal NDP inflation pile drives Canadians further, up to 4% now. This Finance Minister was doing victory laps just 2 months ago, saying that she stopped inflation. It's gone up 43% since then, and after 8 years of this incompetency, they're just not worth the cost anymore. They've doubled the cost of rent and mortgages and how much it takes to save up for a down payment. When will they stop fueling inflation, press the gas on their inflationary spending so Canadians don't lose their homes?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today the Conservatives have shown their true colours. The leader of the official opposition actually bragged about his comments 3 years ago. That's when he railed against big, fat government programs. You know what those were? That was the emergency support we provided to Canadian families and to Canadian businesses to get through COVID. Thanks to those programs, we have nearly 1 million more jobs in Canada than before COVID. Our government is proud of supporting Canadians then, and we're proud.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Coming from the minister who 3 years ago said that interest rates would stay super low. Then they piled up so much debt that the interest rates went up, and now Canada is the most at risk in the G7 for a mortgage default crisis. Maybe she should take advice from the former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley that said that their deficits are like pressing the gas while the Bank of Canada is slamming on the brakes with their interest rate hikes. Not seen in the last 3 decades, these interest rate hikes. When will they stop the inflationary spending and balance the budget so interest rates can come down and Canadians don't lose their homes?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
tell you, Mr. Speaker, who we do not intend to take advice from. We do not intend to take advice from the party that was going to leave Canadians high and dry when COVID shut down our economy. Instead, we supported Canadians, and that support worked. That kept businesses going. That means we have 1 million jobs more than we had before. And Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue working hard for Canadians. We have removed the GST on purpose-built rental. We're going to get more homes built faster.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Speaker, mortgage costs for Canadians are going up because of Liberal and NDP government spending and deficits.
That's right.
Even the current finance minister said spending and deficits are like pouring fuel on the inflationary fire. And John Manley said it's like pressing on the gas pedal while the Bank of Canada is pressing on the brake with higher interest rates. Canadians are realizing that this Prime Minister's not worth the cost. So when will they stop their inflationary deficits so that Canadians can keep a roof over their heads?
Great.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me bring some facts into this conversation. Canada's AAA credit rating was reaffirmed last week by DBRS Morningstar with a stable outlook. We have the lowest debt and deficit in the G7. And when it comes to housing, we are rolling up our sleeves and getting the job done. We have lifted the GST on purpose-built rental. Provinces across the country are following us. We're going to get more homes built for more Canadians. The only thing the Conservatives can offer is austerity and cuts.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, how about a fact? 1 month in 27 months, the interest rate goes below 3%, and this finance minister declares victory. She says that the government's plan to bring inflation down is working, but that's not just what's happening. In fact, it's going up because of rising energy costs. But this government is determined to make energy more expensive by increasing the carbon tax. So here's an idea. Why don't you reduce the carbon tax or reduce other taxes on energy and make it affordable again for Canadians?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Just a little point of fact, Mr. Speaker. I think my honourable colleague just confused the interest rate with the inflation rate. I guess an easy mistake to make if you're a Conservative and you don't really care about facts. But let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, what our government is focused on. We are focused on Canadians. We're focused on fighting for Canadians. That's why, together with our industry minister, we met with the leaders of Canada's grocers yesterday, and we said, stabilize prices now, and we're going to make sure that happens.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Monsieur le Président,
Honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, more bad news for Canadians this morning. Inflation in Canada has hit 4%, and that has a direct impact on all Canadian families. But in July, a few weeks ago, the finance minister said, let me tell you, she said Canada's plan to bring inflation down is working. No, it is not working, Mr. Speaker. And Madam Minister of Finance, it is not working. So the Liberals have been in office for 8 years. Is the Deputy Prime Minister aware that reckless, crazy spending has a direct impact on mortgage payments that Canadians have to pay? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there's one very important thing that I know, something that the Conservative leader admitted just today. Today, he was proud of what he was saying. He was proud of what he was saying at the beginning of the pandemic and at the beginning of the recession. He today is proud to have said that it's not the right decision to support Canadians and to support small and medium enterprises. We're proud of having supported Canadians and businesses. We are still supporting Canadians. One example of how we're doing that is the Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the very least we could say is that the Deputy Finance Minister has a very short-term memory. She doesn't even remember that 2 months ago she said her plan is working, but it is not working, clearly. So here's my question. Does she remember who said, and I quote, deficits are putting oil on the fire of inflation? And do you know who said that, Mr. Speaker? Let me tell you, the Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. She's the one who said that. But here's my question for the Industry Minister. Does he agree with his colleague that more spending means throwing fuel on the fire of inflation? Does he agree with his colleague? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if my colleague across the way wants to teach us how the economy works, he can start by giving lessons to his colleagues who don't seem to understand the difference between the policy rate and inflation. We understand full well the importance of fiscal prudence and responsibility, which is why Canada has the lowest deficits of all G7 countries. This is also why, just last week, our AAA credit rating was reconfirmed. Those are the facts, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, we are not about to see the impact of yesterday's meeting with CEOs of major grocery chains on our grocery bills. Ottawa has demanded that they produce plans to stabilize prices within 3 weeks. Oh yeah? What will happen if they don't? Well, obviously, Quebecers can't go shop elsewhere. And if major grocers don't lower their prices, Ottawa's threatening to overtax them. Okay, but then who do we think they're going to pass those fees on to? That's a question worth asking, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's all well and good to include major grocers in the discussion, but we need to get everyone around the table. When are we going to see measures that will make a real difference to our bills? The Honourable Innovation Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are fighting to defend Canadians. What occurred yesterday was unprecedented. We called in the 5 heads of Canada's major grocery chains to express the frustration of millions upon millions of Canadians. People are experiencing frustration week after week, and we insisted that they give us tangible, detailed plans to stabilize prices in Canada, Mr. Speaker. That's what Canadians expect from us. That's what they ask. That's what we've done. We're going to deliver, and we're going to continue fighting for Canadians, regardless of what the Bloc Québécois may say. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the price of groceries, farmers and processors are the ones who get the short end of the stick. They are the ones producing our food. And right now, nothing's being done in Ottawa to support them in the face of rising basic costs, like labor, for instance. There's nothing being done to help them with inflation and their record levels of debt. There's nothing to combat the ravages of weather events. And then, Ottawa's surprised that food prices are rising? Will the government finally commit to supporting our farmers and processors? Because that's going to show up in the price of groceries, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his important question. Now, Mr. Speaker, one thing was very clear yesterday during our meeting with major grocers. We need to support our farmers, processors, small and medium enterprises, because they are all important players in our food supply chain. So the government demanded unequivocally that major grocery chains stabilize prices in Canada. Mr. Speaker, we support supply management, we support our farmers, and we will always defend the little guy in our supply chain, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, the situation is especially critical, including for Quebec's fruit and vegetable producers. This summer's rains resulted in disastrous harvests. Mr. Speaker, the federal government needs to provide emergency assistance to vegetable growers. And I'm telling you, if the federal government doesn't intervene, farms will disappear, and you will see that will have a huge impact on food prices. Will the government act responsibly? Will the government stand up for our fruit and vegetable producers before it's too late? The Honourable Agriculture Minister.
I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and my sympathy certainly goes out to the farmers with the weather we're facing in Quebec and right across this country. And we have, of course, the CAP program, the Business Risk Management program, which we work with the provinces and the territories right across the country. And my honourable colleague is well aware that the province applies to does the tabulation, sends it into the federal government, and we make sure that we compensate the farmer. And we will continue to do that, working hard with farmers to make sure that they are able to continue. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Just 2 months ago, the Finance Minister said, and I quote, "Canada's plan to bring down inflation is working." Well, clearly the Liberals are experiencing inflation differently, because it's not going down, it's up again today. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, mortgage payments are up 151%, and Canadians are suffering. He's not worth the cost. When will he admit that his inflationary spending is leaving Canadians homeless?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, with great respect to my honourable colleague, she would recognize the disastrous consequences that would have befallen Canadian households if we weren't there for them during their time of need. Their argument ultimately boils down to the fact that we should not have provided support to families to keep food on the table, that we should not have provided support to Canadian employers so workers should remain on the payroll. That's what would have caused Canadians to be without homes. But you want to talk about housing plans? The only plans they've got are to raise taxes on the people who build homes, and it's just foolish, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to put forward programs that will allow us to build more homes, and we're going to put forward measures to support Canadians during their time of need.
The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard repeatedly from this Prime Minister that the cost of living is not a priority and Canadians are feeling the consequences. Here's a few quotes from the Prime Minister. "You'll forgive me if I don't think about monetary policy." Yeah. Or how about, "We took on debt so Canadians wouldn't have to." When will the Prime Minister admit that it is not his debt, it is taxpayers' money? Exactly. And more importantly, when will he start caring about monetary policy so Canadians can afford to live?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I find it fascinating the Conservatives' newfound interest in making life more affordable for Canadians. What's funny, Mr. Speaker, is she doesn't realize that many of her colleagues voted against the Canada Child Benefit, which puts more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 Canadian families and stops sending child care checks to millionaires. They oppose increases to old age security for seniors when they turn 75. They oppose increases to the Canada Student Loan and Canada Student Grant programs, and they oppose increases to the Canada Workers Benefit. You can't be fooled, Mr. Speaker. Their record in government was lower wages, higher unemployment. We've turned the ship around. We will be there to support Canadians in their time of need.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Failed plans. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, finding an affordable place to live is a crisis. Under this NDP Liberal government and their out-of-control spending, inflation and interest rates are both skyrocketing. Rents have doubled, mortgages have doubled, and people are becoming homeless. Will the Prime Minister stop his inflationary spending so Canadians can keep a roof over their heads?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, with great respect, our plan to make sure that Canadians will have a roof over their head is to build more homes. We advanced plans that's going to cut the GST for people who are building homes for Canadians. We are changing the way that cities build homes. We will grow the capacity of the workforce to build those homes. Realistically, when you dig into the housing plan, if you can call it that, which they put forward the other day, they plan to cut funding for home buildings and put GST back on some homes that need to be built. Mr. Speaker, we will be there to build the homes Canadians need, and we will be there to support people during their time of need when it comes to addressing the cost of living.
The Honourable Member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Thank you. 2 months ago, the Finance Minister declared victory over inflation. However, just today, inflation went up again, over 43% since that declaration. Even former Liberal finance ministers, Bill Morneau, John Manley, all agree deficits lead to inflation. And yet, this government keeps piling more and more on the inflationary fire, which is costing more and more Canadians their homes. Does this Prime Minister have any plans to keep his promise to balance the budget so that Canadians can keep their homes?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in response to global inflation that is felt in every corner of the planet, what is the Conservative solution? Slash support to the most vulnerable people, as if that's going to help global inflation. You know what? What is their plan on dental care? We are having the opportunity for 9 million Canadians who don't have the opportunity today to have good oral health, to make sure that that's not only a matter of dignity for them, but it's also a matter of prevention, and they're going to fix global inflation by taking away dental care? No, it's the same old Tory plan. Make the most vulnerable pay and pretend that global problems aren't actually what's at fault.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, families and advocates took to Parliament Hill to demand this government to search the landfills in Winnipeg. This is a human rights issue. It's a dignity issue. And while the Manitoba Conservative government and this Liberal government sit by, human remains of loved ones remain in a garbage dump. Will this government stop playing jurisdictional games, uphold their international human rights obligations, and provide the much-needed resources to search the landfills.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Winnipeg Centre for this very important question. This is a heart-wrenching issue and is part of our sad reality of missing murdered Indigenous women and girls. I had the opportunity in Ottawa yesterday and in Winnipeg last month to meet with the family members, along with members of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, as well as the Long Plains First Nations Chief. I understand the deep frustration that exists with families and communities, Mr. Speaker. Our approach must be victim-centered, trauma-informed, and Indigenous-led in order to support healing, and we look forward to working with the families to reach that end. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
Meeting with those agencies does not equal action. That's right. Why did we still end up in landfills? This government's response to MMID WG2S plus crisis is not enough. The NDP is working with families, survivors, and advocates to push for a red dress alert. Because should we go missing, we must be found. When will this government stop stalling and implement a red dress alert system to save lives?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague opposite for that very important question. We look forward to working with the opposition as well as all parties in order to implement the red dress alert. We know that it will save lives, and it is something so important in order to address the tragedy, national tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and we will continue to work in order to ensure that women are protected, Indigenous women are protected across the country. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, I commend the Minister of Labour for his leadership during the longshore workers' strike in British Columbia. Workers in Surrey Newton and across the country have been loud and clear that they support the legislation to ban the use of replacement workers. This morning, workers gathered on Parliament Hill to call for legislation as soon as possible. Can the Minister tell us if and when this government will prohibit the use of replacement workers in federally regulated industries?
Minister of Labour.
Mr. Speaker, the Member of Parliament from Surrey Newton can tell his constituents exactly what I told workers who gathered on Parliament Hill this morning. We will table legislation to ban replacement workers this fall. Because we believe in collective bargaining, because replacement workers distract from the table, because they prolong disputes, because they poison workplaces for years afterwards. And Mr. Speaker, I hope that all parties in this House, as they did for paid sick leave, will join us and vote unanimously to ban replacement workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
8 years of this Liberal NDP government, farmers can't afford this Prime Minister. On Friday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer said by 2030, Canadian farmers will be paying close to $1 billion in carbon taxes alone. Wow. Carbon taxes that are driving up inflation. Do you know who's paying for that inflation? Canadians. Right. Canadians are literally paying the price. The cost of apples up 61%, carrots 72%, potatoes and oranges up 77%. Will the Prime Minister axe his plans to quadruple the carbon tax so Canadians can afford to feed their families?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
And I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, but I think my honourable colleague realised, like when Hurricane Fiona hit eastern Canada, it destroyed barns, it killed cattle, it destroyed wharves, it cost enormous amount of money. It's quite obvious that we have to do something about the environment, and we are doing something about the environment. And I know my honourable colleague is well aware the farmers stand with us to do something about the environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Well, I'm glad the new Minister of Agriculture still believes that farmers support the carbon tax. He's out for a rude awakening. Yeah. But the previous Agriculture Minister said it's not like we can pass a law that will reduce the price of food. Well, I've got great news. She was wrong. The Prime Minister can reduce the cost of food right now by axing his inflationary carbon tax, which is driving up costs on farmers, on processors, on truckers, and on Canadian consumers. Inflation is up another 4%, and a quarter of Canadian families are skipping meals because they can't afford food. How much will Canadians have to pay to feed their families when he quadruples the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from these conservatives, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have heard the leader of the opposition when he advocate for crypto to Canadians. When it comes to groceries, Canadians are saying thanks, but no thanks, leader of the opposition. We know what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, and yesterday was the first steps. We call on the big grocers to be part of the solution. We express the frustration of millions of Canadians. We ask them to come with concrete plans to stabilize prices. On this side of the House and this caucus, we'll fight for Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Liberal Coalition to radically increase the carbon tax 2.0 fuels inflation across the country. It's a real scandal. Everything costs more because of the Liberal government and the Bloc's obsession with radically increasing the inflationary carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister and his coalition with the Bloc understand common sense and cancel their plan to radically increase their inflationary carbon tax? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have had enough of Conservative slogans. What Canadians expect from all parliamentarians is that they take concrete action. That is exactly what we've done by holding a meeting for the first time in Canada with all of the grocery CEOs with one message, and all parliamentarians should speak with one voice. We understand the frustration of Canadians. There's a role to play. Conservatives should work with us to fight for Canadians and stabilize prices. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, this government and its coalition with the Bloc wants to radically increase the cost of living for Canadians. It's expensive to vote Bloc. Your gas taxes will be sky high. Your grocery bills will be sky high. Your rent will be sky high. Mr. Speaker, will the government reject the Bloc's demand to radically increase the inflationary carbon tax at the expense of Quebecers because the Bloc blocks common sense? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Order. Order. I know everybody is very excited to hear the answer, but I'd like everyone to calm down. The Honourable Minister of Transport. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've heard a whole block of silly things. He's talked about common sense. In 2023, not having a plan for climate change, that makes no sense. In 2023, having assault weapons in our streets, that makes no sense. In 2023, having women's rights go backward, that makes no sense. Mr. Speaker, they want us to go backward, but we're going forward. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, a large union demonstration took place on the Hill today to call for anti-scab legislation now. We've tabled and retabled bills to prevent the use of scabs, but Ottawa won't budge, and it's the right to free bargaining that's paying the price. Honest workers and their families suffer the consequences. Will the government ban the use of scabs once and for all? The Honourable Minister of Labour. We have absolute confidence in the bargaining process. We are certain that we are on the right path to put forward a bill by the end of the year. We need to find a balance between speed and quality. This is something new to protect the bargaining process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, it's been a year since the longshore workers at the Port of Quebec were locked out. 1 year. There are workers who have lost their homes. There are couples who have divorced. There are people up to their neck in trouble. It's no longer just a labor dispute. It's a tragedy for dozens, almost 100 families. What's more, the Quebec City longshore workers are fighting a lopsided battle. It's David against Goliath, but this time, David doesn't have his slingshot. Because this supposedly progressive government is 40 years late compared to Quebec. When will it finally understand? The Honourable Minister of Labour.
For her question, there are indeed a great number of lessons that were learned over the summer with the BC longshore strike. And indeed, there were lessons that have been learned over the course of labour relations at both ports, both in Montreal and in Vancouver. We will be taking a careful look at both of those situations and the relationships between government, business, and employers to make sure that the collective bargaining process is paramount, but also to make sure that the supply chains of this country are protected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
After 8 years of this government, Canadians are seeing record inflation and they're seeing their grocery prices skyrocket thanks to the carbon tax. Tiff Macklem, the Bank of Canada governor, agrees and says, quote, the carbon tax announcements that have it going up increases inflation each year, unquote. The NDP Liberal carbon tax has increased the cost of apples by 61%. And that's just one example. Everything is more expensive. Will the Prime Minister cancel his plans to increase his inflationary carbon tax?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Since it's the first time that I get to stand in the House on behalf of the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, I'd like to express solidarity and condolences to all the families who suffered this year's unprecedented wildfire season. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read a quote called "A Good Idea." Quote, "Thank you for the question," and I'll read a quote from a well-known conservative. "I wholeheartily support in the production of energy, identifying its negative environmental impacts and include the costs of mitigation in the price of the product. This idea is using carbon pricing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions." Mr. Speaker, that quote is from Preston Manning, the political mentor of the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not rocket science. It's basic math that the NDP Liberal government just doesn't seem to get. If it costs the farmer more to grow the food and costs the trucker more to ship the food, it's going to cost Canadian families more to buy the food. And now, after 8 years of raising taxes on families, farmers, and truckers, they want to quadruple the carbon tax. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So when will the Prime Minister cancel his plans to increase his inflationary carbon tax?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Conservatives just don't seem to get is there's a cost of climate change as well. But I appreciate the opportunity to remind Canadians that the price on pollution is a rebate program. And over the next couple of weeks, the tax-free quarterly payment goes out. That's the first week of October. And my colleague is from Ontario, so for a family of 4, this happens 4 times a year, Mr. Speaker. It's $244 quarterly for families in Ontario. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance said she wouldn't add fuel to the fire of inflation, and then she added $44 billion in new spending in 2023's budget, forgetting to get back to a balanced budget. The Bloc is now trying to convince Quebecers that the carbon tax doesn't apply to Quebec. But talk to our farmers who receive bills that clearly show carbon tax, Mr. Speaker. I could even table it if they agree. Everybody here understands that setting aside the carbon tax is the thing to do to help our farmers. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I am not a Quebecer or a Francophone, and clearly I'm not a Bloc MP. But I know one thing about Quebec, and it's that the nation of Quebec is Canada's leader on the environment. It is Quebec that is a leader on climate action. Our government understands. Our government admires Quebec's leadership on the environment. We understand that the Honourable Member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, for many families in my riding, the cost of living isn't easy, and they're having a hard time making ends meet. It's especially difficult at the grocery store. We see prices going up. But, Mr. Speaker, what gives me hope is the discussions that are happening now with the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, who called grocery CEOs in to have discussions on how to stabilize prices. So could he inform this House of progress on those discussions? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for her question. It's an important one. Mr. Speaker, there's empathy in that question. Understanding Canadians who are going through a difficult time at the grocery store. That's why, with the Prime Minister's call, we brought together grocery CEOs to Ottawa. And for all of this House and Canadians, I expressed people's frustration of seeing grocery prices go up. Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that it's a step in the right direction. CEOs committed to working with us on a concrete plan to stabilize prices. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to fight for all Canadians.
Honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, Canadians simply can't afford this Prime Minister. 20% of Canadian families are skipping meals, half of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, and credit debt is at an all-time high, with the average non-mortgage debt being $21,000 per consumer. So will this Prime Minister show some compassion for Canadian families and cancel the costly carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister.
As it's my first opportunity to rise as the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development, I'd like to thank the residents of Canada Carleton for putting me in this House and the Prime Minister for his confidence. Mr. Speaker, we are building a nationwide system of childcare that is affordable, inclusive, and high quality. This is literally putting hundreds of dollars back into the pockets of Canadian families. This is transformational, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work with the province and territories to make sure this happens. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
And Mr. Speaker, that minister is part of the problem. After 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, Canadians simply can't afford this Prime Minister. Even the Governor of the Bank of Canada agrees that his costly tax on gas and groceries is increasing inflation. 20% of Canadian families are skipping meals, but this Prime Minister thinks nothing of spending $10,000 a month on groceries. So why doesn't he show some compassion for the Canadians who put food on his table and axe the tax?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, what's not honest about that statement is that, of course, it's not acknowledging the money that is coming back to 8 out of 10 Canadians. But I would also say we're not talking about the costs of a climate that will not bear crops. We're not talking about, just take respiratory illnesses. Do you know 15,000 people die a year prematurely as a result of respiratory illnesses related to air pollution? Do we know that in the heat dome that occurred in BC, we lost 619 lives? Do we know the cost on our health system and productivity is over $100 billion a year lost as a result of climate change? We need to act.
Luban.
Is our farmers could produce more if he'd stop cutting the legs out from under them. 76% increase in carrots, 76% increase in the cost of potatoes and oranges. There's no doubt the carbon tax is inflationary. But don't take my word for it. Take the Bank of Canada, who recently said every time there's an announcement when the carbon tax goes up, that increases inflation each year. Mr. Speaker, when you tax the farmers that grow the food, when you tax the truckers that truck the food, that increases the price of food across the country. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. When will this Prime Minister and his NDP government cut the carbon tax so Canadians can put food on their table?
The Honourable Minister.
Certainly, ensuring affordability is extremely important in the design of a price on pollution, which penalizes polluters, but does so in a manner that 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back. But I would just say having a relevant plan to address climate change, including a price on pollution, is required to have a relevant economic plan for the future of this country. Today, I was very pleased to speak on C49 in this House, developing an offshore wind industry that's going to be extremely important for Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador. I see across the House a whole range of MPs who spoke against that. My goodness, they're going to need to explain it to the constituents in Atlantic Canada and to the Premier.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The invasion of Ukraine has underscored the need for many European countries to reduce their reliance on Russian energy and strengthen energy security. Earlier today, the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources was joined by the Romanian Minister of Energy to announce a significant milestone in our two countries' collaboration on nuclear energy. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources update the House on this significant announcement? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Energy and Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question and all of the hard work with respect to nuclear energy in Ontario. Today, I was extremely pleased to announce that Canada will be making available up to $3 billion in export financing to Romania for 2 new CANDU reactors. Bravo. This will help Romania in its efforts to phase out coal, to reduce European reliance on Russian energy for Romania, for Moldova, and for Ukraine, while supporting sustainable jobs and major economic opportunities across this country. This announcement sends a clear message. Canada is a committed ally in the fight against Russian tyranny and against climate change, and is successfully building a prosperous low-carbon future.
There you go. The honourable member for Churchill, Kiewit-Aski.
Paying the price of a housing, a mental health, and now the climate change crisis. Yet the Liberals think that now is a good time to cut up to $7.6 billion in Indigenous services. We've seen this devastating austerity from Liberals and Conservatives in the past, cuts that will hurt Indigenous peoples, families, and communities. So my question is, which programs are the Liberals targeting? Housing, health, education, Jordan's principle? And why aren't the Liberals going after the billionaires to recoup the money they owe Canadians instead of making cuts on the backs of Indigenous peoples?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Relations.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And listen, in 2015, after a decade of entrenching poverty for First Nations, a newly elected Liberal government got to work on reconciliation. First Nations community services have increased by 156% since then. That's for things like school, Mr. Speaker, water, and health services. I've been clear, and so has this government, programs and services for Indigenous peoples will be protected. Reconciliation is good, Mr. Speaker, for Canada and for our economy. And it's something that the leader of the opposition, of the official opposition, has never understood. Indeed, under the Harper government, First Nation organizations faced a 65...
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
From hurricanes to floods to catastrophic wildfires, Canadians are living the urgency of the climate catastrophe. Yet at the boardroom at Suncor, the only urgency they see is making as much money as possible from burning fossil fuels, even as our planet is on fire. We need better from CEOs like Rich Kruger. So to the Energy Minister, when will this government stop giving a free ride to big oil and institute a credible emissions cap that will hold them accountable and protect the future of our planet?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Energy and Natural Resources.
Thank you for the question. I would say, Mr. Speaker, that it is important in the context of the fight against climate change that every sector of the Canadian economy play a role. That is what we are doing through the emissions reduction plan that we have put into place. Concurrently, obviously, we need to look to take advantage of the economic opportunities that can be enabled through a shift to a lower carbon future. Earlier this week, I was speaking at the World Petroleum Congress, and I spoke very, very clearly to the oil and gas sector about the need to decarbonize to remain relevant and competitive in a low-carbon future. And certainly, we are going to continue that conversation with all of the CEOs in the energy sector and in other sectors.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery